Hey guys, John here. Do us a big favor and everything. Smash that like button, smash that comment button. I actually have Will from Conversation About podcast. And a matter of fact, I'm actually glad he's here. We're going to be talking about Miss Marvel episodes 5 and 6. So if you haven't seen 5 or 6 yet, I recommend that you do so because this is going to be our spoiler warning. Without further ado, let's go on ahead and get on with the show. Hey Will, how you been doing?
Doing well, doing well. Just excited to see where this next land of inhumans or other things takes us.
Same, because I'll tell you what, I was not expecting the ending that we got for this. I was like, okay, so she helped the big bad out and everything because of the things that happened in the episode 6. But we'll talk about that a little bit later because I wanted to dive into episode 5.
Right.
But I didn't think that we were going to get the ending the way that we did. But I'm happy with the way they did it.
Mhm.
But this is something that I really liked with episode 5, with us going back in time to 1942 when Asia takes refuge in the village where Hassan, an Indian independence activist, offers her food and shelter. And I was never expect. Here's the thing: I like the fact that we went back into 1942 because it actually gives us some cohesive backstory into her family's history,
Yep.
and that was really fascinating to me. And I wasn't sure if this was going to be like a backstory where basically we're just focusing on her, and then finally, whenever you see the very end of it, where it blends in with a little bit of modern day stuff, it puts it into perspective of how they're combining the two elements.
Well, also just the idea that that the grandmother, described in the earlier episodes about how she was guided home on a with a through a sky full of stars,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that Kamala actually was the one that provided the stars. And so it's really interesting when you see Aisha, she's looking at the bangle and she's saying, what you're seeking is seeking you. And the idea that she confirmed that with her coming in, that was what she was looking for. She was looking for somebody that was going to be able to come in from a different world, from a different time, that's connected to them, that would be able to guide her daughter home at that point. And then for her to say, protect the bangle, because that was something that she needed to be reaffirmed, I guess, because you look at earlier episodes, it's like, she was, of course, you had the other lady who was Cameron's mother, who was, trying to find the bangle and all this other stuff and trying to convince Kamala to let them use the bangle to open up the portal home. And then them finding out that when that occurred, that what would actually happen, which was something that Bruno had already talked about, I think in episode 3.
Yeah,
Like,
episode
okay,
3.
yeah, you open that up, the power it's going to take to open up a portal for them to go back is going to destroy our world, and
We
then
see the amplifications of it. Right.
yeah, so we actually see what he was saying was 100% right at that point, that episode as well. So I thought that was really cool. They paid that off because then Kamala could get a reestablished faith in her friends, because at that point she was still kind of pulled between these people, her people that are related to her, and the ability she had, and finding out more about herself, and then the fact that you get this really sweet moment between. And I love the fact that with this series, most of the MCU stuff prior to this was really more so about fathers and sons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are moments with exceptions where you're dealing with mothers. Tony, dealing with mom when Winter Soldier during Civil War, and then you had a moment with Thor when he
Right.
gets to go back and talk to his mother. When he goes back in the time trying to get the gem. But overall, it's mostly father and sons. So with
Right.
this series, it really comes down to like the mom looking at her mother and going, maybe it's time you come back to live with us. And she's like, well, you ran away. Why would I come live where you are? Like you ran, like I didn't go anywhere. Like you were the one that ran. You were the one that left.
Right.
And so, but they were able to reconcile. And then the fact that her and Kamala are able to reconcile even more, to that point where she says to her, it's that I love you and I don't know that I want to let you go. I'm holding on too tight, I feel like. And then her mom was like, well, I held on tight enough, too tight. She's like, no, you didn't. I didn't see what I needed to see with you at the time. And so it's beautiful, this reconciliation that was occurring between these women, and Kamala getting to see her mother really reestablishing a relationship with her mother.
Exactly. It's kind of like this thing of you don't have kids, you don't understand until you have kids someday, right? So when she, of course, whenever she winds up giving birth, she actually understands now what her mother's going through because now she has a daughter of her own, and now she doesn't want to let go of her daughter and let her grow and be her own person because she's afraid that she might insecurities and stuff. I like the fact that it's between mother and daughters this go around instead of father and sons and stuff like that. Like you said, it's been played out through the MCU, but the fact that we even got that, I think it's a beautiful thing, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. And then, of course, I also another thing I would have to say is that I really liked is the fact that you actually have a little bit of history of what it was like in India and how they were trying to get away from everything in their own country just to get some freedom in their lives. And the fact that
Yeah.
they were trying to do what was best for their daughter at the time, and we actually get some heritage behind it. I thought it was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, Derpy Gaming says, I'm here for the quality 90s cartoon themed content.
We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to
Yep,
that. It's okay. We're going there.
we're going to go
We're
there in a
going.
minute.
We're gonna go there. Also, it was real cool getting a chance to again because of course Kamala does come back, and when Kamala comes back from this trip in the past, we end up seeing uh, Najma and all these people, and this portal is going to open because of the strike to the bracelet. And so then, the one person that's the lackey kind of goes up there and she just breaks down. And it's real interesting too, because the way that process looked initially, it kind of reminded me of how Terra Genesis worked in the comics. If for those of you who may not know, the Ms. Marvel series, Ms. Marvel in the comic books was an Inhuman. And so basically the idea of Terra Genesis was there was a bomb, I believe Black Bolt and a couple other people were trying to stop getting set off. It got set off. And so people were going into Terra Genesis. They were going into these like really hard rock looking cocoons. And so they would come out after a period of time and they would have these abilities. Not Carol, but Kamala, when she came out of the cocoon, because she had a vision of Carol Danvers while she was in it. So she comes out looking like Carol. So for a while in the comics at first, she very much looked like Carol Danvers. She thought that's what a hero looked like. So she kept looking like Carol. Matter of fact, when she saves the one girl, that's when she saves her, but she looks like Carol Danvers with the stretchy abilities. It's not till
Right.
later when Kamala kind of comes to her senses and goes, if I'm going to be a hero, I need to look like myself. And so
Right.
then
I
she
need to
got,
stand out on my own instead of being a
yeah,
copy of someone else and
I
being
can't be a copy of
authentic.
this person, right? And so
Right.
eventually she transforms to look like herself, and that's when she starts really looking at her powers and things like that, which is interesting again for reasons I'm sure have been talked about to death about people talking about the change in powers uh, from her being there, more of the skin and bone stretchy stuff as opposed to more of the light based stuff that we got to show. So there are some differences, but I do think the way they're going with it, it works.
For sure. It definitely works for the MCU and their brand on what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not going to be a straight to comic book to film adaptation. If you want that, you might as well just read the comics instead.
Right.
Because that's one of the things I like about the MCU. They change things up to benefit the universe that they're trying to create. And I
Mm-hmm.
like the fact that you have a character like Kamala where she's basically, you know, trying to find herself and trying to figure out what kind of hero she wants to be and how to be authentic to where it's not mimicking or copying Carol Danvers and
Yeah.
everything too. And then I also, like I said, this is our first introduction into the history of India and things like that too, and focusing on her family and where they came from and their heritages. This is a very smart way of actually doing a TV series because we've never been introduced into this kind of world before,
Right.
especially when you see your great grandmother dying and right in front of her eyes. And, I like how the conversation between the great grandmother and Kamala has that conversation. It's like, I know she's alive. I know my daughter's alive because you're
Yeah.
here. And that
Yeah.
gave her some peace to the point where she can rest in peace knowing that her daughter's alive instead of wondering in the afterlife if her daughter made it or not.
And then the fact that Kamala gets to help her grandmother get connected back to her
Right.
dad, and she's like, I can't make butterflies, but I can't make stars, but I can make steps. And so she starts making the steps, and then as they're breaking apart, you see the little scatters that look like the stars. And so I thought that was really cool how that worked. And then the fact that she was like, it was me. It was me. Let's talk about that ending, though. Let's talk about
Okay.
that.
Yeah, let's go in and talk about the ending. So
So,
whenever I first saw the ending and the way that it had ended with Kamala being Carol Danvers, I thought that she just
no.
transformed.
I was talking about the ending of 5. I wasn't talking about the ending of 6.
Oh, sorry, my bad. I thought.
That's okay. Yeah, we're
I
on
will.
episode 5.
You know what? I'm just
Well,
gonna Men in Black everybody. You didn't hear anything. You don't know nothing. So, so
sorry.
any. So okay, let's back over to 5.
There
So
was Bruno and Cameron
right,
at Bruno's house because Cameron, at that point, had already had his mother's powers transferred to him before she closed up the gate. And then he starts getting light-based powers similar to Kamala, and of course, not knowing how they work and all that stuff. And he ends up basically he's talking to Bruno. Finally, admits that he thought his name was Brian the whole time, and that's what he was calling a Brian. It wasn't the jealous boys playing the games. It was just him. He legitimately just thought his name was Brian.
you
And
see,
so
I get that mixed up too between Brian and Ryan. So I get names like that mixed up because of how close together they sound. So that's an easy mistake to actually make.
yeah,
So, but I like the fact that he actually says to Bruno, "Look, man, I'm not jealous of you or anything like that. I just didn't know what your actual name was. So
yeah,
that's my bad, dude. I didn't mean for that to actually happen the way that it did. But you can see the impact and the amplification of what's going on within his own body, where his own body's actually rejecting the power of it, and he's scared. He's scared to death. And of course, you have the drone that happens over at Bruno's apartment, and it makes everything blow up. Then, of
yeah,
course, Bruno also tells him that he doesn't have any parents either. He's basically an orphan as well.
right.
So
And
that's
so
something relatable that they can both
yeah,
connect.
and the thing about it is that at that point, Cameron's not aware of what actually happened to his mother. He's just left alone because he's thinking, I've got to get back to my mother. He's like, well, she left you. Did she leave you in a jail to be? And he said, yeah, but she left me because she needed to. But she's not gone forever. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then of course the drone shows up, and of course they blow up the store. Which of course I'm sitting there going like, the heck? Like that's the
Right.
end. Like we don't even get to see it. Like, okay, surely Bruno ain't dead. Surely Cameron ain't dead. What the heck's going on? And it made me definitely want to like tune into the next episode just to see what happened to them.
Right, because that was my primarily focus whenever I saw that ending. I'm like, whoa, okay, this had like a Spider-Man No Way Home kind of feeling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or Far From Home. It had that kind of flavor to it because of the way
Yeah.
it ended on Far From Home, where basically you see that cliffhanger. That had that kind of same cliffhanger as well, especially when you look at the drone and stuff like that.
Yeah. And of course,
But
those drones are Stark Tech drones that were
right,
kind of copied from the stuff that was there. So, like, damage control has really gotten a hold of a lot of that Stark Tech, man. And people, I've heard people say, well, how would Tony feel if Tony were alive to see that happen? I'm like, well, it's good that he isn't, because I'm pretty sure if he was alive, I'm pretty sure he would be like the first guy in the suit going, we got a problem. This is not what I created all this for.
right.
You're blowing up buildings, you're doing all this stuff, and you're hunting kids now with powers. What the heck is this?
This is the exact opposite of what I had in mind. Especially now, I could see if he was like an Iron Man 1, where basically he was like a rich snob douchebag and stuff like that before he actually had that transformation of that story arc and stuff like that. Yeah, I could see him possibly doing that. But now, because you have that story arc, he's not going to be like that, and he's not going to even be playing with damage control. He'd be trying to fire them. That's
Yeah.
what's going to wind up happening.
I could
But,
see that becoming a bigger issue when they do the Armor War series.
mm-hmm.
Since Rhodey's going to be the primary person behind that, I can see Rhodey almost being the guy surrogate to step in and be like, why is the DOA taking all this stuff my man put together and try to hunt all these people down? What's going on? So I can see that being a part of what Armor Wars gives us.
But I thought the setup for this episode was really good, especially whenever you have Kamala, where she winds up trying to save him, and stuff like that. And then once you see everything that he's doing and everything, he's scared. And everybody's thinking, oh, he's just trying to kill everybody. No, he doesn't understand what's going on within his own body to the point where this is new to him.
Yeah.
Kamala can actually take off the amulet and everything, and her powers are gone. It's going through him, through everything else, and causing damage and havoc. And so I like how Kamala goes into the little bubble that she created with them. and she says, "Look, you decide on what you want to be,
Mhm.
on what path you want to choose, because
Yeah.
I can't do that for you. You have to do that yourself. But I'll get you a 10-minute head start before damage control comes after you." So she
Right.
showed mercy on him and didn't
Mhm.
try to turn him in. So that's something that was actually really cool.
Yeah. Well, and also the fact that she says, "Look, your mother chose you. Your mother made a sacrifice for your benefit. I know you don't feel like," because he kept saying, they're never going to accept us. They're never going to accept me. They're never going to accept you. So why not destroy them or whatever? And I also felt like there was this real interesting duality because that first time when he had that big reaction in the middle of the alley, you hear his mother's voice again calling his name. And so it's kind of that question of, is he going to slide to the dark side? Is he going to start feeling like, is he going to start feeling the way she felt about things? Or is
I
she going
think
to make,
so.
he's going to make his own decision and be his own person? And that's part of the thing I thought was really cool. But then also, again, you got the damage control in the mosque. You got these people sitting there saying, look, you just described about a fourth of the people that are in this building, male and 16 years old. You know, you're going to be here for a while. But, hey, my man made cookies, have a cookie. They were still trying to be diplomatic with them.
Hospitality, trying to show some hospitality with them. And even though they were trying to be racist douchebags to me because of the fact that he goes, yeah, we're looking for someone that's Pakistani, Arab, stuff like that. And like, you just described everyone here, dude. Want a cookie? And I
Yeah.
like how even though damage control is trying to be in charge and trying to overpower them, they're still trying to show some type of humanity within them and everything, and try to give them a cookie, try to just be warming and welcoming into their culture in a sense. That's what I got out of it. I thought that was a really touching moment in a sense, kind of all
Well,
the hostility.
and also it's real interesting too because Deaver is the agent that was there. Clary later came to Deaver and said, "Look, get out of there. You're in a school at this point because they had made it to the school." She said, "Get out of there. You're in a school. You don't have clearance to do this." And then she made a call. She basically was just like, "Nah, call in everybody." Like she basically went against that call. And I thought to myself, if we're going to do the Marvels and we're going in a secret invasion, I kind of wonder if maybe she's a Skrull and that's the reason why she's so interested in these kids. Like, I kind of wonder because it's like, as a regular human being, like, you don't have a motivation to directly disobey orders, in that regard,
Right.
unless you see yourself as a bubble. And there may be something that plays out later. I know they weren't going to play it out then, but I thought that was interesting. And then also the young lady that came in that got saved by, and I can't think of names, it's the young lady that Kamala saved in the first episode and how she kind of came out and was just like, when they're talking to walking to Nakia, and she says, "Well, all the people that know that Kamala." So wait, you knew that Kamala was Kamala. You knew that Kamala was her, and you didn't say anything. Why didn't you say anything? She's like, "Well, I feel like that Kamala can come out to people and tell people who she is in her own
Self.
time."
Right.
Yeah, which is really interesting because that character in the comics actually starts a relationship with Nakia in the comics. And so there's that other idea too of her kind of not necessarily expressing her truth. So there's that idea there that a lot of fans are just like, well, come on, Disney, make up your mind. I'm like, well, we don't know if we're going to see a Ms.Marvel season 2. It's
Right.
something they can
Even the
play with
stars
later.
don't even know.
Right. And I know a lot of the series that are out there right now, a lot of the Disney stuff, especially with awards seasons going off, they're not announcing that they're redoing new series because they're waiting to kind of see if they can get nominated for those isolated limited series awards.
Right. To see where they're going. And, even the actress, I like the actress's response to the whole entire deal with the mutants and stuff like that, because I don't know what Kevin has cooped up right now or anything like that. I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not going for verbatim, but all I have to say, it has to be good.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited about that. Derby Gaming actually had something to say though too. The average MCU viewer are not ready for what they thought Infinity War and Endgame was emotional damage. Kevin Feige, reference Easter eggs, inner secret wars. They're not ready. If you know what if you know what you know, if you know you know.
Yeah. And I thought what was really cool, and I'm going to be man enough to admit I cried when I saw this moment when Kamala had, of course, first of all, when she said embiggen, and she actually got bigger, she actually got taller and had the longer arms, using the light to do it. And then she saves everybody from the car. You know, Bruno, of course, is lashing out. Not Bruno, but Cameron is lashing out. And like all these people are getting affected, and then she like catches the vehicle that's coming toward her family and all these people. And then later, when the damage control comes in to try to get to her after the bubble experience, you know, the mom and everybody runs up to Kamala and it's like, "We're here with you. You know, you've got all of
Right.
us here with you." And then the cops are like even standing up there like, you ain't
I
getting
love that moment.
I thought that was cool.
It's you know what, it kind of reminds me of Spider-Man in a sense because of the fact that all the city of New York is for Spider-Man. Now you have all of that part of the New Jersey atmosphere that's there for Kamala,
Yep.
and they're going to stand with her. And I thought that was a very touching moment. And I almost had tears coming out of my eyes though too, dude. Like no lie, I was like, okay, this is such a sweet moment, and a moment for Kamala to actually say, you know what, I'm a hero now.
Yeah.
Carol Danvers would be proud of me on what I'm doing.
Well, and even that, you got to go back to when Mama in the old dessert thing. And if you remember, when Kamala first found a bangle, it was in the old caramels box that Grandma sent. Okay. So then, and I need to know when Mama had time to make her a whole outfit because she did that and like had it in another one of the caramel boxes.
Right, because she was like so against it at on episode 1. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we had a trip to India. You discovered who your great grandmother was. I had a chat with your grandmother. You know what? And you also saved some people. So you earned the right to have a suit now that I just happen to have all this time packed away, ready for you to use.
So she fixes food for Bruno quickly, and she compares to sew a mean outfit quickly. Because you got to remember too, go back to the con when she was like, "Okay, you can go to the con." She didn't just make a suit for her father; she made a suit for Kamala too, where there could be the little mini Hulk.
Right.
And I'm like, this woman right here, like, I need to know what kind of power she has. Like, this ain't standard mama stuff. Like,
right. Well, remember what she also said too. She said, "I'm not going to let you run around like all these other little skimpy girls wearing tight suits and everything. If that's what you think that you're going to get, because that's not happening here." And then what does she do? She gives her a suit that's actually suitable for someone her age. Right. That's not tight. So that was a sweet moment.
And covers her properly.
Yeah. Another thing I like is this. Remember whenever the family is gathered together and Kamala wants to go ahead and make the announcement that she's Ms. Marvel, and she just, I just want to let you know, I was the one. We know you saved everybody. Just how do you know? And I like how the brother breaks it down. Welcome to the world of gossip. She tells Becky, Becky tells Tom, Tom tells Becky, and so on. And it's the social networking of women. So
yeah. And then the fact that you know the sister-in-law was like, "Are your powers unlimited, or do you have to charge up every day, or something like that?" And that was almost a direct nod to Green Lantern, if you think about it, because you know, of course, Hal has to charge the ring daily, and so for a lot of people, don't make it a comparison between Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, as well as Kamala. It's like, no, it's not a charge-up thing. I mean, yeah, she could burn herself out if she's not real careful, but
especially with the amulet, if she uses overuse the amulet and just keeps using it, she can get burnt out. But if she takes the amulet off and just rest or whatever, she's not going to burn herself out,
right?
Because she doesn't have actual powers. Once you have the amulet off, it's gone.
Well, no, because remember Bruno said in episode 2 that the amulet just unlocked something that was in her.
That's right.
Already. So, and
her DNA was changing.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
And so we go through that. We go through that experience. She ends up basically even trying to save save the people who were coming after her, because like there's a point where, of course, she lets down the thing. They're all around her, and then she just kind of runs away. And then you get that. Oh my gosh! Another moment I almost cried was when her dad comes out. and her dad is sitting on the step. Like, and that felt so 90s sitcom-y. You know how that felt like Cosby Show era.
Yeah.
That felt like Growing Pains. That felt like some of these 90s shows where you had the mama and the daughter, or the daughter and the father on the rooftop. I mean, even Black Lightning uses that trope where they would sit outside a lot of times to talk on the roof. And he tells her that Kamala in this language represented perfect because they had been trying so long to have another kid, and then they had another kid, and then she was considered perfect. But another translation of the name meant you are our Marvel, hence you always were our little Miss Marvel. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I know that's not the way they did it in the comic books, but that so ties her again. It ties to the family.
Right. Everything is connected within the family itself, and it makes it that much more powerful whenever she says that. And it's basically accepting her for who she is, which is something that she's been wanting her family to do. And I just thought it was a heart-warming moment. So, are we ready to talk about the...
Almost. So when she runs away, she kind of jumps out of her coat. She kind of in her costume. She's kind of going. And you see the little steps. He goes magic, and it reminded me of that scene in the first episode where she's looking at it, and her mother's going, "Are you going to decide to be the normal girl that we raised? Or are you going to be something with a person dreaming big dreams?" And she says, "Cosmic," and it kind of made me think about her dad seeing her the way she sees herself. And another thing that was really touching. Remember back in episode 1 where the dad's like, "Oh, we trust you," and her mom's like, "No, I don't trust her." And then flip that around in the last episode where she says, "Well, we trust her, right?" He goes, "Yeah, we do." And it was a moment for them to come together, which I thought was really special too, because there's that thing of the dad was always kind of had her back regardless, but he knew that he loved his wife too, and he wanted to make sure that they were good. So it's just interesting to see how that kind of turned around as we got to the end of the series.
Exactly.
So I thought that was really sweet. And then, of course, we get the moment where she's on the lamppost, very comic book image, where she's on the lamppost just sitting there. And then, of course, we get Bruno, which now we're headed there. So we get Bruno and them talking about the car, talking about Cameron. Cameron gave me the car. And he's like, "No, he didn't." And they're arguing and all that stuff.
I love it. I love the banter with that. But I do want to
got the keys all as well, which I thought that was funny too. Because I was like, man, Nakia's got some skills. Like,
she does. She definitely does. There is another thing I want to mention. You know how you were talking about the lamppost when she's sitting up on there? That is like a very childlike thing that I thought was actually really cool on how much, she's changed and her story arc is great, but she still has that childlike behavior where it's like, da-da-da, I'm just going to sit here and everything and just chill, watch everything happen. That's all.
Yeah.
But I like that. But, I definitely like how the series went. And then I'm wondering, too, I wonder if, what's the character's name that she saved?
The
one, I'm talking about Cameron? The villain. Yeah, Cameron.
Cameron?
Yeah.
Because he ends up going with the red daggers at the end. He ends up going back to where they were. And, of course, he meets the guy from the red daggers who... I
had a question for you, though. Do you think that he's going to be with them, or do you think he's going to turn after he works with them for a little bit and be like, you know what, this is not the path I want to go on. I'm just going to go on ahead and do my thing, and that's it? Or do you think he's going to kill the red daggers?
Here's the thing. In the comics, I remember that the red dagger was one person, not a whole group.
Okay.
So that's first thing. 2, if we get a season 2 announced, it wouldn't surprise me because Cameron in the comics very much became a bad guy.
Okay.
And so it's very possible that he could turn against the red daggers, and maybe at this point the red dagger calls her and says, "I need help dealing with your past here, because your boy's gone rogue." And then they have to go back to India for her to kind of deal with that aspect of it, try to talk him down, because the idea of his mother transferring that power, I have a funny feeling it has to do with the fact that he may have access to be able to open the portal she couldn't get open.
Right. Maybe it has to do with the both of them having to be there to open up the portal together or something. But I would love to see a fight in India versus it being in the States, because it's something different. Just like how we did with Moon Knight. I think that would actually be better, because I like seeing fights not just in New York or New Jersey or in the United States. I like to see them spread out through different countries. That's just me
Yeah.
personally. So let's go
Rudolph
ahead.
definitely says, and basically says, I've been running over, checking over your stuff again, and I noticed that what I thought originally about that bad power in you or whatever is rewriting your DNA, not quite accurate. I feel like maybe what happened was that there's something in your blood, you're different, like there's a mutation or something. All of a sudden we heard the 90s X-Men theme song kick off.
Okay, let me tell you this. I didn't even hear the theme song. So I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it
Yep.
because when I was doing my research, to find out about if she's a mutant or if it was just the fact that she just changed into Carol Danvers, I was just thinking, okay, she just turned into Carol Danvers and that's it. But once I started researching this thing, I'm like, okay, I didn't hear the guitar from the 90s from the X-Men theme. So I'm going to have to go back because I didn't know about that.
It was just a little bitty thing in the music cue. And it's a little bit more orchestral, but it's there. It's like right as he says mutation. And so he kind of flips it together. She looks at it funny. It happens. And then she kind of goes, oh. And then they end up going off to Shawarma before he gets ready to go off to Caltech. And so I would love to see a season 2, if for no other reason, just to have Kamala show up on Caltech campus.
Me too. That would be awesome.
That'd be neat because I think the other thing they kind of did too was there was that brief moment with her and Cameron where they were going to kiss. And then Bruno just happens to run up on him and he's just like, oh, hey, guys, you need to go. I'll distract him, but you need to go this way if you're going to get him where you need to get him. And it's kind of like that whole thing and the question of where are they at? Because we really don't know. And of course, fun part, Shawarma. End of the first Avengers movie, where do they all go? They go to Shawarma. So that's kind of funny. That's the thing. But then, of course, we get to the part you're talking about, and I'll be honest and say I don't think that she transformed into Carol. I think they swapped places.
Okay, because because Kevin Feige actually confirmed that they didn't just swap places.
Oh wait, I missed that. So Carol,
yeah, okay, he confirmed. Yeah, he confirmed it. She's actually a mutant.
Well, yeah. He confirmed that part. I'm talking about the whole thing at the end where the angle that the bracelet glows a different color, and then all of a sudden it like she goes into the closet, busts in the closet, and then busts out as Carol.
Cool.
And she looks at herself. She's like, no. Because she's like, because here's the thing. For her to turn into Carol, she would still recognize her own room. She'd just be like, what? Like, there's no mirror. There's nothing that showed her that she looked like Carol.
Okay.
So she looks around the room. All she sees is stuff with her on it. And she's looking around and she's just like, oh, no. And immediately runs downstairs. So that's what I'm thinking. They switch places.
Okay.
Instead of she looked like, because if she'd have came back and she looked like Carol, she'd have saw herself in the mirror and she'd be like, why do I look like Carol Danvers? How am I going to face my mom now? You know what I mean? Like that would have been the way you ended that one. But I feel like with the way to brace it, because again, in the comics, it was one of those days where she came out of Terra Genesis and she looked like Carol. She knew she looked like Carol because she made the conscious decision in her mind to look like Carol because she thought that's what a hero would look like. I feel like it's more of a swap because then they really were like, Ms. Marvel will return in the Marvels. So I'm like, okay, I have a feeling what happened was some kind of energy thing occurred, and Ms. Marvel is where Carol should be, and Carol is now in her house sitting there going, "The heck is this? Where am I at?" Because now Carol's got to go back to wherever she was. So, of course, it's funny because somebody made a reference to the fact that a Tuma has been shown from the Black Panther Wakanda Forever movie. And also that the Atlanteans, a lot of the Atlanteans are going to be blue skinned. So now, of course, the question comes to it, are we dealing with Kree Skrull or are we dealing with Atlanteans? Because maybe the other amulet is with Namor in them.
That would make sense, in all honesty, if they went down that road.
I mean, yeah, could be interesting. I mean, of course, like I said, she's definitely a mutant. There's no question about that. They stated that in the thing. That's what they're going with. But as far as the switch goes, I feel like that was more of a switch of two people positionally.
Okay.
Because, like I said, Carol, I could understand it if it's because people, because a good buddy of mine said the same thing. He was like, well, maybe she jumped and then came back looking like Carol Danvers. I'm like, well, at no point did she look at the mirror to know she looked like Carol. She knew she was Carol. I like the different look Carol had. I like the fact that she's got the fingerless gloves now with the exposed arms, and she's got kind of a side haircut that's a little bit different than the last time we saw her, which was in, I believe it was in Shang-Chi. Wasn't she in the hologram? She was in the hologram room with them. Yeah.
Yep.
So I like the fact that we've got a slightly different look, and then the fact that the Marvels, I think, is February next year.
Yeah, the Marvels is next February. Yep.
And so, yeah, we're going to get, of course, we're going to get Wakanda Forever, which will probably give us I think Wakanda Forever is the last, isn't Wakanda Forever the last movie, 2022?
Yeah, Marvel? It's the last movie.
So it'll give us it will probably, if they do it the way they've been doing it, they'll give us the tease in that movie to the Marvels, because that'll be the next movie it leads into.
Right. My question is this, though. Do you think that Wakanda would actually come out at the release date that it says, or do you think that they're going to hold back because of all the issues that they've been having?
I hope we don't get, because the problem is they've moved it a couple of times already. I'm like, at this point, I'm kind of like, okay, we're going to have a Mobius situation if we're not careful. You're just going to keep backing it up and backing it up.
Or Black Widow situation.
Yeah, or Black Widow situation where you keep backing it up and backing it up, and then from a timeline standpoint, it throws everything off. I'm like, just let it hit. If it's ready to go, let it go. You're already producing promotional footage. We've already been told that Winston Duke, who played M'Baku, is going to have a lot wider role. We don't know if that means Shuri's going to be Black Panther for a little while. He's going to take it over. There's rumor that possibly that they're going to reveal T'Challa and I think it's Nakia. I think that's another Nakia that's there. She's with child, and so she ends up having a child, and so that becomes the new heir of Wakanda, and so that's who ends up taking over the Black Panther mantle at some point. There's so many different things. I'm like, if you've got it ready to go, just
let it go.
You can't keep backing up timeline. Do this stuff. If it's ready to go, let's get it out there. If it's not ready to go, it's not ready to go. Some people have asked me about how I feel about them recasting Chadwick Boseman, recasting for Black Panther, and I'm like, look, I can understand them not doing a full-blown recast for the character of T'Challa, but at the same time, I'm like, at some point, somebody has to be in the mantle. So somebody has to be in there, whether that's eventually the son of T'Challa or whoever you're going to put in there. Let's just put it in there, make the commitment, and go. If you're going to have Shuri stay as Black Panther, let's do that. If you say I'm going to have Shuri be there for a little while, and then she's going to help with the Young Avengers, MCU version of Young Avengers, as their tech person, you could do that. Although, we're already getting Riri Williams in that movie as well. So, Riri could be your tech person, as well. It just depends on how they want to play it. But overall, I feel like this version of either in Young Avengers or in whatever they do with the X-Men, I feel like we're going to get Ms. Marvel as an eventual part of that. Like, I don't know if we're ever going to get a Champions run per se in MCU, because they haven't really given us any of the other champions really.
Exactly, and I feel like that Kevin Feige's like, you know what, the mutants have been here all this time. It's just that they walk amongst us, so therefore we don't know who's a mutant and who's not. They're hiding out among us. So that's what I'm thinking that he's gonna do, instead of just like, basically they come in and everything during Multiverse of Madness. That's not gonna happen. I don't think. I think they just been living among us, and now they're about to be revealed. Yeah. That's where I'm going on now.
I got a question for you as well. Now, did you see there is a thing, like a Marvel Cruise adventure thing that's going on? Where Ultron, so there's a YouTube video out there, and I'll have to try to send it to you, where basically it's Sam Wilson as Captain America, Ms. Marvel shows up, Ant-Man and Wasp have a funny little discussion, because Ant-Man comes out and he basically says, look, there's a lot of people that asked the question.
I saw that. I saw that video.
That's all part of that whole little package. So it's Sam Wilson, Kamala's there, and of course, again, it's funny because she shows up right as Captain Marvel has already left. So she's like, "Oh wait, was Captain Marvel already here? Did I miss her again? And so it's kind of an idea that because the whole reason why the swap's important too is because they still haven't met yet. Even though the swap occurred, she didn't get to say, "Oh, hey, Carol, high five," as they're swapping places in between the dimensions.
Right. That's gonna be something if they fight in battle, and then Carol's over somewhere else, too. But don't forget though, too, Kamala is also just discovering her power, so she could actually probably teleport Carol wherever she wants Carol to go, too. So that could actually come in handle in battle.
It'll be interesting as well for that. I'm really curious because I can't leave my girl Photon out because she's going to be a part of the Marvels as well. Monica Rambeau from WandaVision.
Right.
You know, so she'll be a part of that whole thing too. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that movie plays because my hope is that while Carol should be the star of the movie, I hope that that'll put all the focus on Carol and they're just kind of playing the sidekick role. Like I really hope that they get their own minutes to shine during the course of the movie.
Same, because I feel like with Monica, you need to have her out front and center. You need to have Carol out there up front and center. Well, otherwise, you're not doing these characters justice.
Yeah, and also I think we need to have that moment where Monica gets to look at Carol and say, "My mother died. Where were you?" Exactly. You know, you were supposed to be there. You had promised to be there for her anytime she was in need, and you weren't there. Like you know, and then if she comes back, well, where were you? It's like, oh, I don't know. I disappeared for 5 years.
Right.
You know, like I apparently got snapped. You know, that's the whole thing there. And I mean, it's the snap is still something that we're seeing the repercussions of. I mean, even just look at it, which I know you've talked about this already. Thor: Love and Thunder. You know, that the whole concept of when Jane is talking to Thor and Jane says, you know, it's been about 3 years, and then Thor's like, well, 8 years, 47 days, something like that. That's when you realize, like, Jane probably got snapped.
You have it on mute. There you go. You have it on mute.
Okay, there we go. I didn't realize I hit that.
you got overexcited. It's okay. It happens.
Yeah. But yeah, basically the whole idea of the Thor and with that going on, and then that whole idea of you not really connecting to the fact that you weren't a part of the world for 5 years, and then to come back into it 5 years later, while these people that were left behind were still trying to deal with all that.
And so, right, and play catch up, make everybody play catch up with each other and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And Carol obviously was with us because that she's having those conversations during Endgame, so she didn't get snapped as far as we know. And so, but the fact that Monica did,
well, was it in Endgame where Thor says, "Oh, that's Jane. She was my ex." Was that in?
He says that, and that's where they confirmed that she was snapped as well.
Okay, yeah. So they confirmed,
right? Yeah. And so that's the whole point, is that, you know, because in Jane's mind, it hadn't really still registered that she was gone for 5 years, because she said, "Oh, about 3 years or something," right? He's like, "Well, 8 years, da 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 da." And so it's like you add 5 to that, you get what you thought it was.
Exactly. Well, that's everything that I had wanted to cover as far as Ms. Marvel goes, man. I do appreciate you taking the time out of your night and everything to talk about Ms. Marvel, doing this Marvel after show, Marvel after show. But I'd like for you to come back for She-Hulk with Alex and I.
Oh yeah, definitely. That'll be something that's really cool. Now I do got a question for you. Now we got Secret Invasion coming up sometime after the Marvels. We got all this stuff coming up with Nick Fury and all this other stuff. Do you think that we get the Marvels in some sort of form in Secret Invasion?
I'm thinking that we will. I mean, it makes more sense to actually put it in Secret Invasion than put it into like smaller films or solo films, because the Marvels is so much bigger than what people realize, and you need to have the Marvels into something big. So what way to go and do it is that way.
Mm-hmm. Because let's say they find out that some of the Skrulls, because Carol, of course, was the one that interacted with the Skrulls really first. You know, Carol and Nick and them are the first ones to really interact with the Skrulls. So if you can imagine for a minute that they start finding out that some of the Skrulls didn't exactly keep the ways of peace like they said they would. You know, I kind of want to watch this.
Yeah, baby, we'll watch it together. I don't mind revisiting Miss Marvel with you. We can actually
Yeah.
binge all the episodes and everything. That's very quickly to get through. So
Yep.
so we can actually watch that together. I'll be glad
Yep.
to do that.
And remember also to make sure to check out because there are a few of the episodes with after credit scenes, so make sure not to miss those.
Exactly.
So those are important. But yeah, I feel like it's and I keep hearing people say, that this era of the Marvel movies it doesn't feel as connected as the first through the fifth phase, the fourth through the first through the third phases of the Marvel movies prior. They're really doing a rebuilding, it feels like to me.
Well, they have to
Because
rebuild their building blocks because
yeah,
of all the phases that we went through and those journeys that we went on with every single one of those characters. But also, too, people forget that when they were first doing their phase, it wasn't cohesive
right.
either. But at the same time, though, it was kind of cohesive in a sense because I even talked about this on my Thor: Love and Thunder review, though, too. We still had introductions to other characters. Either it was with their weapons or it was like little nods here and there to let you know, hey, look. Even Nick Fury made an appearance to say that he's putting together a team. So we knew what we were getting. But with this, we don't really know what we're getting just yet, and
Right.
everybody's wondering what's going on. And so Kevin is going to be making an appearance out in San Diego Comic-Con to make the announcements.
This
So
weekend. Yep.
that's yep. So that's when we'll know is what's cohesive. But for me, it's been kind of a letdown. Like we had one good film, which is Spider-Man: No Way Home, and then after that we had two. Some people will say, "Oh, it was just an okay movies," or they'll be like, it's mediocre. It was okay. It wasn't that. It wasn't for me." You know what I'm saying? But I just didn't really care for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I didn't really care for that film. And then I was totally let down with Thor: Love and Thunder altogether.
Yeah, I feel like the thing that's going to bring it together. This is just my 1,000 point theory here. I don't know how accurate it's going to be. I feel like Kang is your endpoint.
They need to do
Because
Kang. It makes more
because
sense.
because if you go through and you look at like Loki and you set up the whole thing where he says, "If you think I'm horrible, wait till you meet my variants," and then you start to understand that he's going to show back up in Quantum Mania next year. So
Right.
it's like, why would this villain keep showing up? Now he's not quite pulling the Thanos duty of showing up at the end of every movie. Thanos didn't even show up in every movie,
But he's the
but
puppeteer.
you have this idea that he's coming through. Now somebody said, well, they're going to eventually do Fantastic Four. You can still have Doom get involved with the Secret War. That's fine. That's great if that's where they want to go. But the ultimate goal, I feel like, is still Kang
Me too.
because
Because if
they're
you're
going
gonna do,
to.
here's the thing. If you're gonna have a big villain like Doctor Doom, you want to introduce him maybe into the next phase. You don't want to have him mixed in with this phase.
Right.
Otherwise, he's gonna be overshadowing everything, and Kang is just gonna be a smaller villain than what they're trying to set up. When you want Kang, you want to have a big villain to finish off your phase, and
Yep.
Kang is actually the best person to actually finish up your phase with.
And if you're having an interdimensional Kang war where the repercussions of what happened with the Thanos snaps cause these multiversal situations, then it feels like Kang is going to be the person that's trying to reestablish a proper timeline.
Exactly. Well, that's everything that I had wanted to cover as far as Miss Marvel goes, man. Like I said, I do appreciate you taking the time out of your night to do this. I enjoy doing this with you, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on my show. And Will, tell everybody where they can actually reach you at.
All right, so conversations behind dot 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 is the conversations about dot 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 is the name of the podcast. There is a pod page out there. If you do a Google search on conversations about dot 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 pod page, you'll be able to pull that link up, and it'll have all the episodes available on there. It's also available on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast. It's also available on Amazon. Wherever you can listen to your podcast, we're there. So we're getting close to episode 200. So that's going to be a thing. And John, at some point in the near future, I'm going to need a little video thing from you or audio thing, just sharing about your experience being on the podcast. I'm trying to get everybody that has been on to just come in and be a part of that 200th episode.
Thanks, man. I do appreciate the invite. I'll definitely be there. I do appreciate that for real, man. I'll definitely be there, and I'll let you know whenever I'm freed up. Let me know the exact day, and I'm there.
Gotcha.
But another thing too is we just started our Patreon. And we have a $5 tier. That's the only tier that we have right now because we want to see how well this is actually going to go. But it's called patreon.com/movie lovers unite. And for $5, you get this is actually called our movie lovers request line. So therefore, you can request any movie that you want us to review, and we'll review it. And then you'll be the first ones to actually get it on the podcast or on the YouTube channel as well. So if you want that tier, it's only $5, and that's not bad considering nowadays. And if it improves, guess what? We'll add another tier later on. But that's called Movie Lovers Request Line, and it's actually www.patreon.com/movie lovers night. You can find all that information in the link below for you guys to enjoy. So, with further ado, that's going to be it for the show and everything. And I do appreciate you once again, Lil. And always until next time, guys, it's been fun. It's been real. Can we do this again?